Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session. My name is Rahul Prakash.
And I'm Joe Castellanos.
We are senior program managers on the Identity, Governance, and Access Management team at Microsoft. We have a couple of wonderful demos lined up for our session today. But before we get started, I have one quick question. How many of you work at organizations whereby you are required to work with users from other organizations? OK, lots of hands up. Keep your hands up. How many of you have more than 1,000 guest users in your directory? Wow, almost everyone's hands are still up. More than 5,000? More than 10,000? How many don't know?
So one of the common things we hear is a lot of customers don't have a process for bringing in guests. Even if they have a process, it's not a good one. So we're going to talk about how Azure AD can help customers and organizations start to govern the process and how you collaborate externally. All right. So we're going to tell you a story here. So I'm Joe. I'm going to be an employee at First Up Consultants. I'm in charge and responsible for planning the next annual summit that takes place in March of 2020. I've hired super event planners to help coordinate and for the logistics of that event.
And again, I am Rahul. Me and my team work at Super Event Planners. I have just been assigned to the First Up Consultants account. I have never worked with Joe. I have never met him. I don't know what I need access to get started on this account.
So as part of the relationship with Super Event Planners, there's going to be a team of folks from that organization that are going to start helping out with planning. They're going to need access to a bunch of different stuff. So they may need access to Dropbox, to Teams, to SharePoint, to groups, a ton of other resources. I've worked with my IT team to help set up a process to help govern how these new users from Super Event Planners can come and start to get access in one place without me having to know who it is. So we're going to jump into a demo of Azure AD Entitlement Management and how that can work.
So again, back to me, Rahul at Super Event Planners. I just got assigned to First Up Consultants account. I don't know what I need access to. So I received this email from Adele saying, hey, Rahul, welcome to the team. Click here to request access to everything you need. So I click on this link, which takes me here. And I see something called Access Packages. Not sure what this is at this point in time, but it says this contains all of the resources for the leads planning in the annual summit. Sounds like what I need access to. So let's go ahead and click into this access package and request access. Business justification is required. Cool. I'm new to the team and I need access. And let's go ahead and click submit.
All right. So now, let's change the screen. I am Joe, again, at First Up Consultants. Now that Rahul submitted a request, I get a notification saying that there's a pending approval that I need to go take action on. So I can go ahead and click on the link in the email. It's going to take me to the same My Access portal, which is a new end user portal that folks can go to. Rahul went there to request. As the approver, I can go in and view all the pending approvals that I have to take action on. So here, I can see that Rahul submitted a request. I can go in and check out the details. So I can see Rahul submitted a request. He's requesting access to this package, and here's his business justification. Based on this information, I think it's good enough that I can approve it. Awesome. So let's go ahead and approve.
And then back to me. I get an email notification which will tell me that my access to this access package has been approved. I click into it, which takes me to myaccess.microsoft.com. And here I see that I have been approved an access package. The package contains all the resources I need. Again, now I can see that there's these different groups and teams that I have been given access to, SharePoint sites, and more importantly, third-party SaaS applications. So, and right from here, I can go in and view all the resources that I have been granted access to, and I can launch them directly from this UX.
So now that we've talked about how you can set all this up, I'm going to walk through how you can go through the Azure side or the Azure portal and create all this. All right. So I'm jumping into the Azure portal. Within the Identity Governance blade, I'm going to go ahead and click in on Access Packages. So within the Access Packages, I've created a couple here. I'm going to go ahead and click in on the vTeam. So when we create an access package, there's a couple things that comes along with it. The first thing is the resource roles. So when I click in on resource roles, you get to describe and define what resources are associated with this package. So when a person gets approved, what are the things they need? You can add groups and teams. Those are security groups and office groups. You can do SharePoint sites and third-party SaaS apps. So here, in this example, we have one team, one application being Dropbox, and a SharePoint site. But what does it really mean to give someone an application, a SharePoint site, or a team without the role associated with it? So within each resource, you get to define what role the user will be related to that resource. So for the team, I'm going to be a member of the team. For the application and SharePoint sites, you can define the custom roles associated with those resources. All right. So now that we have the resources, let's take a look at the policies. So when you create a package by default, no one gets access to it. So you have to create a policy allowing who can request it. So let's check out a policy that I've already created. So this policy is for external partners. So you can give it a quick name and description, and then we can describe the who. So traditionally, we've been able to target users that already exist in your directory. So you can use users, you can use groups, and you can say, hey, these folks can request. But when you're collaborating with other organizations, it's difficult to know who. You may, in this example, know the organization, and there has never been really a good way to represent that other organization. So we've introduced a new concept, being a connected org, and within a connected orgs, I can target the other organization's Azure AD directory. What that means, and this is super important, is any user from that organization, from that directory, can view this package now. They can request it. And then once they're approved, then they get an account and all the access they need associated with this package. Since these users are coming from another organization, I'm going to want approval to be set. So you can go ahead and say, I want approvers. But since we don't necessarily know who needs access, or myself doesn't know who needs access, you can have sponsors set at the organization level. So whenever a user submits a request, the approval gets routed accordingly to that sponsor. We have internal and external sponsors representing your contact within your company or your contact in the other company. Just adding on to that, there's a bunch of new workflows that we're adding within approvals. So we'll have alternate approvers. So if myself or the sponsor were to go on vacation, you can always have someone in line to get added to the approval workflow so that the person that requested can get a decision. All right. So now that we have who can request, how long do they get it for? So let's check out the lifecycle settings. As I mentioned, the event is taking place March of 2020. So no one really needs access after March. You can set an explicit end date, and at that time, all access will get deleted and removed. So if any user gets brought in through the system, not only do we clean up their access, you can clean up the guest accounts themselves. So you don't have any zombie accounts or orphan accounts that are still living in your company. Lastly, we now have access reviews of access package assignments. So while we have a max end date being the end of March, within that time window, you can also have recertification campaigns going on. So within that time period, you're still certifying that the users need access within that period.
Thanks, Joe. So what Joe just showed us is how he was able to give users from super event planners access to applications, to groups, to SharePoint sites, to teams in a governed way. He did this by creating an access package that included all of these apps and groups and SharePoint sites, and adding super event planners as a connected organization. By applying these concepts, me, Rahul, and my team can get secure and governed access to this access package. Now, Joe, this works really well for new guests coming into my organization, but you did mention that you have a very strict policy that guests have to be reviewed, guest access has to be reviewed every so often. Apart from entitlement management, how are you managing guest access to your existing apps and groups and SharePoint sites and whatnot?
So we have this tool called access reviews. That is going to be the tool that we can leverage to review existing guests and existing guest access to resources, being groups and applications. So I'm going to jump in now and walk through how you can create a new access review. Awesome. So I'm jumping back into the identity governance blade, and I'm going to go ahead and click on access reviews, or create an access review rather. So here we have an access review form. You can go ahead and give it a review name, a description, and a start date. So once this start date takes place, a campaign is going to get triggered. But since we have a policy where I need to review all my guest access on a reoccurring basis, I don't want to have to come in here and create a review every so often. So for the campaign, you can set a frequency. In this example, I want it to take place every 90 days or every quarter. All right. So this is going to be an ongoing campaign because I just want this to be a standing policy that I have to enforce. So I want to pick a particular sensitive group that I have. So I want the members of the group to be reviewed, but I want to scope this just down to my guest users. So not every user in the group is going to be reviewed, just the guest users of it. So let's go ahead and pick a group. Go ahead and search for a sensitive team that I have. Do Annual Summit 2020 teams. All right. And let's go ahead and start it.
So what that does, what Joe just did over there is create an access review campaign that impacts all the guest users who have access to that particular team. In this case, I have access to that particular team. So I receive an email saying, please review your continued need for access to this sensitive group. As I click in on that, I'm then forwarded to a portal. It's a very simple portal. This is exactly where I land up that says, this is the access that you currently have to the Annual Summit 2020 Teams group. Do you still need access? Yes or no? If I click on yes, then I am required to provide a justification. Else, I can click no. Very simple. It's a one-click, one portal place without multiple different views to look at. It's as a self-user, I know exactly what I'm reviewing, and I can see the description and who has requested the access review campaign. Okay. Let's go back to you.
Great. Now that Rahul has submitted his decision, I can go back in and view the progress of this access review and this campaign. So I'm going to go back into the Azure portal, and I'm within the access reviews blade, and I'm going to go ahead and click in on a previous access review that we've created. We can check out the progress of it. So here we go. So we have 9 users in scope of this review, and there's been 2 folks that have not reviewed yet or no decision yet. 4 have approved and 3 have denied. So here is a report where you can go in and check in the progress of your campaign. Once the campaign's done, these decisions can go ahead and get auto-applied. So you can configure a policy that says, based on the decisions, once it's completed, the system will go in and make these actions for you. So you don't have to go in and run any scripts or do any manual tasks.
Great, thanks. So what we just showed you over here was 2 ways from the identity governance and access management teams to govern your guest users and govern employees' access to resources. The entitlement management is a way to add specific organizations as connected organizations, add access packages, and have a very secure governed approach to managing access. But for your needs where you already have this ad hoc sharing going on currently, and many of our customers tell us that they've only seen the number of guest users increase in their directory because of the ad hoc sharing, access reviews is your way to scope access certification campaigns specifically to those guest users and have multiple reviews where you may have a review campaign done by the guest users themselves to attest their own access. And after that is complete, you may do the same review again and have someone who's either the group owner or application owner do that attestation campaign. That concludes the demos that we had for you today. Thank you so much for attending our session. There's a few other identity governance access management sessions going on this week. These are the ones listed out. So please do come see us then.
Yep. Any questions, feel free to come up and we can have a FAQ.
Yep.
Q&A.
Thank you.
Thanks.